I'm going to make this little Torah for us three for the first amount of Shoshana, Rahel Shoshana Bat Shemila. Yeah. What's the first name? Daat. Bat Penina. Okay. Halakha for today. Yechave daat. We are in book 2 still, and we're on Siman 43. Umbrellas on Shabbat. Moshe mitliya, yeah? That's how you say it? האם מותר לפתוח מטריה בשבת ולנוסעה עליו להגן מפני הגשמים? Can you open an umbrella on Shabbat and to carry one to protect you from the rain? ואם לפחות אפשר להטיל לנוסעה עליו בשבת אם הייתה המטריה פתוחה מערב שבת. Or at least, if my umbrella was open before Shabbat already, can I at least pick it up and use it when it's raining on Shabbat? It's been raining a lot here in LA. That's what gave me the inspiration for this subject. Okay. Last week we got soaked on the way home, yeah? Last week was the big one, yeah? Shabbat. We got soaking wet on the way home.
I did.
I got soaked.
Big time.
במסכת שבת מבואר שאסור לעשות אוהל ארעי בשבת. Like I said downstairs. On Shabbat, you cannot make an ohel. You cannot make a tent to cover a roof with a slope downwards to cover something. We don't do this on Shabbat. Like I said, just to review. Yeah, everything that we can't do on Shabbat is because this is what they did to build the Mishkan. Yeah. That's why, right? And so the ohel. Yeah. So this would be binyan, part of binyan, and he's going to say now it's a mahloket if this is the oraita or if it's from the rabbis to make a tent.
Although I spoke about it yesterday, as important as it is, at the end of the day, if Chachamim tiknu, Chachamim tiknu. The only mahloket is on safek this, safek that, right. But what does it really make?
So let's see. Let's see. Let's see. I'll tell you in a second. The Reef writes, from the Torah, it's asur to make even a temporary tent, a temporary oil that you're going to dismantle. The Reef holds it's asur from the Torah. The Rambam writes, the Reef, it's written. He has the halakha at the end, and he writes it's the halakha. That makes sense?
No, does he send us to the place where it says here because it says in the Torah?
He's understanding the Gemara when the Gemara says you can't do it. I'll give you a little context to this Gemara on Shabbat. The Gemara on Shabbat is page 137. It's very complicated, so I hope we don't get too much into it, but I'll give you just this example. They're asking the question, if you want to, in the old days when they used to have the wine, it wasn't ready to drink out of the bottle. It had a lot of sediment, right? So they used to pour it and filter out all the sediment. And so this guy wants to have a big bucket, and he wants to put a bag, like we put a garbage bag in the trash can. He wants to put a bag around the lip of the bucket, and the bag is going to sag, let's say 10% down into the bucket. He wants to pour the wine in the bag, and so it filters out all the stuff. That's the question. Are you allowed to do this in Shabbat? Are you allowed to do this on Yom Tov? Some people hold this mutar on Yom Tov and asur on Shabbat, and some people hold it's asur even on Yom Tov. Why? Because Yom Tov is ochel nefesh, you're allowed to do cooking and preparation of food. So some people say this would also be categorized in ochel nefesh. So you're creating a tent. You're creating a covering in a slope down covering in the bucket. That's what the Gemara is trying to say. This would be an ohel arai. You're creating a temporary closure over the bucket.
So it's not even on the.
They're not even talking about the filtering.
Process, the food process. It's the fact that you created the tent.
Right, because filtering.
Even though a tent is intended for human consumption.
Right, but this filtering, the reason why they're not going after the filtering, and this can take us into a way different realm, because Shabbat is so complex, but let's make it as simple as possible. If you want to make a pour-over coffee on Shabbat, which means you have the grinds, and you want to pour over, and the grinds stay behind, is that bored? Is that selecting? Are you taking the good from the bad? No, right? Because it's just passing through. The water is just passing through. And so that is not an active selection process, right? Make sense?
Yeah.
But you don't want to use an actual filter to filter out, let's say, peanuts from the peanut shells, because you're taking the good and you're leaving the bad. You're taking the the bad away from the good.
Right.
That makes sense? And so when you're pouring water down over the item that's passing through it, it's not really a question of bored. It's more a question of the oil. That's what the Gemara is talking about. So there's your context, okay?
Okay.
And so the Gemara is saying, is it creating an oil? Well, if it's creating an oil, it's only a temporary oil. Oh, we got to do this again for UV. Because he's not good. UV, we got to do it again. You want to try your luck with him?
I mean, in 2 second summary. יש גמרא ששואלת אם מותר לשפוך את היין בשבת למין דלי כזה ששמים לו בד שבנוי ככה, לעשות פילטר ליין. למה? כי בזמנו היין היה לו הרבה, אתה יודע, את הלכלוך של הענף.
Doesn't it sound so much more exotic in Hebrew than it does in English?
אז הוא אומר, עזוב את האלת ופילטר, גם אני חשבתי, הוא בכלל לא מדבר על זה כרגע, for different reasons, מדברים על זה שכשאתה עושה את הבד הזה, אתה בונה אוהל, זה אוהל זמני. וכל השאלה פה, האם מותר לבנות אוהל זמני בשבת? ואם האיסור הוא מהתורה או מדרבנן.
Why does it matter if the Torah or Rabbanan?
Good question.
It doesn't matter.
Okay, good question.
To do it anyway.
So Moshe asked the same question. You're right. We do what the rabbis say. We do what Hashem says, obviously. But this is why it's so important to learn deep halakha and understand what's from the Torah, what's from not. Because when you start adding different circumstances, you have sha'at hadachak. You have certain times that have to make an exception. Can I cut this corner? Can I add on 2 or 3? Like certain things could be mistafim. For example, I have a whole bekenisset of people here trying to pray. So it's a rabim, it's a sibur. It's also a davar mitzvah. And I want to do something that's rabbinically forbidden. Maybe we can cut this corner. The same rabbis who said, don't do it, can maybe come back to us and say, okay, now I'll let you do it. You understand? So a great...
There's certain flexibility on Rabbanim.
But you have to be like...
We can't
like
do that.
Max, like
no,
but that's why
but that's why we learn. No, opposite, UV. The more you learn, the more knowledge you have, the more power you have. When your wife is in a tough spot, and you're on vacation somewhere, and there's nobody to ask, and your wife is like, what am I going to do? I have this problem. I need to do this in Shabbat. I need to do this in Shabbat. You can say, this is a midrabanan. And maybe, I'm not saying everyone's a posek, but if the knowledge is good, at the very least, or your wife says, I just did this. Most of the questions that my family would ask me is, I just did this. Am I going to Gehinnom? That's the classic Sephardi question, by the way. Right?
I just did it, and what?
Am I going to Gehinnom? I just did this, yeah? And so, by the way, what you did is Nisur midrabanan. It's a Gizam midrabanan. You shouldn't do it again. You did not violate the actual Torah. Just letting you know. And the person's like, oh, thank God. It's good. The knowledge is power. Trust me. When you think everything is asur, it's a very narrow world.
But isn't it amazing that they know when to ask you after they do?
Oh, always, yeah. Always.
Because they never
By the way,
the answer they're going to get.
Sephardi classic question number 2 is, if I do this, will I go to Gehinnom? That's right next on the list. Yeah, that's the answer. That's all I want to know. Is it Gehinnom? If it's Gehinnom, I won't do it. Okay. And so we're talking over here about ohel, creating this tent, creating a covering with a slope. And so ohel really should be a fixed ohel, right? And so the Gemara on Shabbat says, well, the ohel, okay, I'm going to give you one more nugget, and then we're going to leave this Gemara on Shabbat, because otherwise it'll take all the time. There's a general rule, if you learn the laws of Shabbat deep in the Gemara, most of the Isurim on Shabbat in the original form, not as we know it today, but in the original form, meaning biblically, the biblical prohibition is only when you're doing constructive behavior, not when you're doing destructive behavior.
So taking apart an oil would have been versus building it?
So that's the question. So taking apart anything, why are you, or don't even use taking apart, go across all the Isurim of Shabbat. We say this in Bamim Badakin every Friday night. What does that mean? We say that, right, who cares about charcoal? Why are we saying this? What are we saying?
Because you create something.
Creation. Blowing out a candle, according to the actual Torah, blowing out a candle on Shabbat is allowed. unless you're blowing it out for constructive behavior, which means I'm blowing it out, which is destroying a flame, because I want to use the charcoal to write something. That's a constructive behavior. Another example, if I want to take, let's say, the aluminum foil roll, and I want to just cut the rolls, right? Is that constructive or is it destructive? It's for sure destroying. You're tearing something or a paper. I want to just tear up my papers on Shabbat. It's destructive behavior. According to the Torah, it would only be forbidden, according to the Torah, if it's for a constructive purpose. Erasing letters on Shabbat. I want to take my eraser and I want to erase the letters on the paper on Shabbat. Is this allowed or not allowed?
We would never unless you want to use the paper, clean paper for something.
According to the Torah, I have to be very careful. Yeah. According to the Torah.
So Chachamim did the siak, so we will not be confused.
According to the Torah, if you're just erasing, just because you want to erase, it's not forbidden. If you're erasing because I want to write something else in that place, that's not allowed. Because what's forbidden is the way Art Scroll, actually, they use a beautiful word in their Gemaras. They call it creative behavior. The Torah, what's forbidden at Shabbat is creativity. Because why? And it's so beautiful. Because Hashem created the world in 6 days, and Hashem says, Vayinafash, I stopped my creation. And so the same thing that I'm stopping to do, you have to stop to do, which is creating new items. Creating, not destroying. Now the rabbis came along and the rabbis made a lot of fences on Shabbat and said even other things are not allowed. Understand this? So there's layers on everything. This Shabbat is one of the most complicated, but yet at the same time beautiful set of laws you can ever dive into. It's very deep, right? So what was I saying? And so the Gemara over here that he's quoting, we didn't even get through the first source, but the Gemara is saying, well, creating an oil, what's the problem, right? Taking down an oil, what's the problem? Well, the Bnei Israel, when they had the Mishkan, Hashem would say, Al pi Hashem yahanu v'al pi Hashem yisa'u. Hashem said, take down the oil, take it apart, take the Mishkan apart. They only took it down so they can move and build it again. This is the concept we're talking about now. And so it was a destruction
for the purpose of construction.
Very good. Got it? Let's go back to what we were talking about. So the Gemara says,
but if it was for the purpose of storing, or let's say on their last stop, now they're entering Israel, although they had the Mishkan in Israel, but let's say they're just about to build the Beit HaMikdash, and they say, take it apart. They could have done it on Shabbat because they're not rebuilding anymore. Hypothetically, not according to Chachamim.
Correct, right. And this is applicable now. All you have to do is use your imagination and apply this to other situations. And now you can understand why there can be leeway. Toilet paper on Shabbat. Oh, we didn't even get there yet. Hold on. Toilet paper on Shabbat. I'm tearing toilet paper. Am I creating anything? I'm destroying. I'm tearing the paper, right? And so, according to the Torah, is ripping a piece of toilet paper asur on Shabbat? According to the Torah, it shouldn't be, right? And so now maybe the rabbis can say, okay, for public hygiene and for people to be healthy and feel good and feel clean, because if you're dirty, you can't even pray. Maybe we should allow what's biblically allowed to tear a toilet paper. Now you can understand how the rabbis have leeway. If it was forbidden from the Torah, you can't tear toilet paper. Finished. Am I saying you can? I'm not, because I'm not a posek. It's a complicated topic. But if you need to,
but I think it's like opening a wine bottle. When there is a necessity.
It's also there's definitely a necessity, but again, that's my point. It's not biblically forbidden.
No, but I think halachically, all that you can.
I know. I'm just afraid to say that because
you didn't prepare.
Yeah, because there's so many layers to it. I don't want to be on record saying, but if you do it, you should do the shinui. Maybe do it in a different way than you usually do it. So when we could do that as a separate topic. I want to be very careful not to overstep my boundaries. But that's a perfect example. If since it's a rabbinic prohibition, it's destruction for not creating anything. The rabbis would say, well, if you need to use the bathroom, we allow you to do this. You understand? And so the answer is knowledge is power. You have to know what's from the rabbis and what's from the Torah. Okay, ready? Let's try to blow through this as fast as possible because we spent a lot of time, but it's important. Halachot Shabbat is always going to be very, a lot of intro stuff. It's a whole new world. One last thing on Halachot Shabbat. I don't remember who said it, but I know it was like big rabbis, Gedolei Hador. I've read that they said this. They said people can study in Kollel for 20, 30 years. From my experience, I don't know about every Kollel in the world, but I learned in Kollel. From my experience, the standard Ashkenaz Kollels, which is the Kollels of the world, even Sfaradi guys, they're mostly learning in Ashkenaz yeshivas, most of us, right? The standard yeshivas out there, what do we learn? We learn Nizikin, damages, Baba Kama, Baba Batra, Baba Misiah, yeah, always. Nashim, always we learn Nashim. Kiddushim, Gitin, Kituvot, Yivamot. We learn Nedarim, we learn, it's very hard. Just about everything else, you don't really learn. The Briskers, which is a really big, intense yeshiva, they learn Kadshim, they call it, Korbanot, and stuff like that. But Shabbat is not in the curriculum in a standard yeshiva. Now, I'm sure there are programs out there.
What's the logic?
Berachot is not in
What's the
Kollel.
logic?
I think, I don't
They
know.
figure everybody knows by the time
No,
they get to
I don't know
Shiva.
if it's that.
I figure it's too much.
צריך להיות מהצד אחד.
If it's not open, if the kitchen's not open, you're not going to be able to. The yeshivas, what they're trying to do is they're trying to teach you how to learn a Gemara. I'm going to use Ashkenaz terminology now, okay, because we're talking about yeshivas, yeah? They want to teach you how to learn a Gemara. And so they want to teach you the Lumdisha. They call it the Lumdisha Gemaras, the ones that really get your brain going. And so a
To
halakhic,
calibrate it to the Gemara's thinking.
they want you to get into a whole maximizing your brain power in a Gemara. That's what their goal. And then so a Berachot, Mesechet Berachot, which is packed with daily halachot, which was like, oh, if you look at the halachot we do in the yechave daat every week, probably 50% come from Mesechet Berachot. No, we're not going to do that. There's no lumdis there in the Ashkenaz term. There's no finger action.
ואם
This is-
תאמר
it's
שזה
just-
וזה,
it's
אמר
halakha.
לי זה וזה, so why should you say that?
And so they leave it. You do it on your own. You know,
They're not interested in that.
they want to do lumdis. They want to maximize their
The
brain.
goal is different.
So Mesechet Shabbat, it's not in the curriculum. Now I'm sure there are certain programs like a Kollel in Israel that's a Shabbat Kollel where they learn Mesechet Shabbat. I'm sure. In the standard yeshiva, it's not. And so you can go, I've heard people say you can go 20, 30 years learning Kollel. You don't know the first thing about Shabbat because Shabbat's a little island. Mesechet Shabbat's like a little island. It doesn't really touch on other Mesechtot. It's a little island with its own set of rules, and it's a whole new island of information. And if you don't get involved in it, you just never know. And so literally you can have Kollel guys violating Shabbat left and right. Okay, ready? Let's move on. Yeah. So the question is this Ohel Arai, a temporary tent, is that forbidden from the Torah or from the rabbis? And so we have a machloket. The Rif, Rabbi Fassi says that Ohel Arai is forbidden from the Torah. The Rambam says Ohel Arai, temporary tent, is forbidden from the rabbis, from the Rabbanan. Machloket. And he says over here, Rabbi David Pardo, who is an Italian rabbi, he actually, his son married the Hida's daughter. So he was a consuegro of the Hida. Rabbi David Pardo writes, Le'esor petihat mitriya b'Shabbat, that it's forbidden to open an umbrella on Shabbat, and to carry it, to protect yourself from the rain. Why? Because you're making a temporary tent on Shabbat. The umbrella is supposed to be closed. It's not going to stay open forever. In fact, it's the opposite. People are superstitious, and they won't even let you come in the house with the open umbrella, a lot of people, right? Which is a bunch of nonsense, but it's a temporary tent for sure. Mikol Shekin, he says, for sure, according to the Rif, there should be no wiggle room, because the Rif holds that a temporary tent is midoraita asur. And he proves from what the Rambam writes. This is what the halakha said downstairs. You see the Rambam's words, like I said downstairs? Yeah, it has to be a hard. Rambam says if you have a hat on Shabbat, you're allowed to wear a hat on Shabbat, a fedora or a hat, a big hat. And so Marash Maharuf, like I said, says you cannot wear a hat that has a rim that protrudes and goes out a tefach, which is 3-4 inches, right? which is every hat. A lot of hats actually go that far out. This far, yeah.
I think they're all the black hats.
All the black hats. But the Rambam says, he adds the word hard. The brim has to be hard and not bendable for it to be forbidden. If it's a bendable brim, then it's allowed. And so he says, according to this Rambam, the hat is only ohel arai. You're not keeping the hat on your head forever. It's meant to take off your head, right? And still, he would, if it was a hard, firm hat, it would be asur, right? And so therefore, ohel arai is asur in Shabbat. So to umbrella, which is a temporary ohel, should be asur according to the Rambam, and for sure according to the Rif. Good? Shulchan Aruch says the same thing about the hats. That's what I showed Moshe yesterday. The same halakha. Maran Shulchan Aruch is very strict, and he says you can't wear a hat with the brim going out. But like I said downstairs, for the people who will listen online, Chamitak Yosef says if you have a hat with a brim that can bend up or down, it's allowed to be worn on Shabbat. Okay? V'lo od, ela she'afilu im hayta petuha me'erev Shabbat, says Rabbi David Pardo. Even if the umbrella was open before Shabbat, if you hold it, you're making the oil on you now. You're making the covering on you. And you can't do it. And so Rabbi Pardo says no umbrellas on Shabbat, even if you open it before Shabbat. He lived in the 1700s in Poland, Rabbi Landau. He writes, Pasak Gamkim Ne'esor Petihata Matiriya B'Shabbat. He says also it's Asur. B'Chatab, and he writes, Shim Hayta Petuha Me'erev Shabbat. If you open the umbrella before Shabbat, L'chaora yesh makom lomar she'afa pishu nose'a b'Shabbat eno nechshav ki oseh ohel b'Shabbat. It should be allowed because you created the ohel before Shabbat. There is a logic to say it should still be asud, but there also is a logic to say it should be mutad if it was open before Shabbat. He says, people are not going to know that you opened the umbrella before Shabbat. So everyone's going to think you just opened the umbrella on Shabbat. And so he's going to forbid this action even if it was open before. They're going to think that you opened it on Shabbat. Even if it's a rabbinic prohibition, we can't do things that people think we're making a mistake. In the Shach, the Seftei Kohen, he writes, the Noda B'Yehuda continues. When this invention, I guess, when this umbrella reached our country, he was in Poland. In the 1700s, 1713, he was born. When they brought this umbrella to our country, everyone was using it. I protested strongly. And I announced in the shul, I said it's asur. Ad shani hoshesh li'isud sikila. I told him it might even be a biblical, according to the Rif, a biblical prohibition, which is, God forbid, sikila for Shabbat. Daat. Once I said that, people said, okay, we're not going to use the umbrellas in Poland on Shabbat. Hatam Sofer. Hatam Sofer was in Pressburg. He was born in Frankfurt. He lived in Pressburg, right? 1760s. He was a little later than Rabbi Landau, who we just quoted. Where did he say? He wrote, Lahalok al Noda B'Yehuda. He disagreed with this Noda B'Yehuda. B'Chatav, and he writes, Shirov ha'olam b'medinato, in I don't know which country at the time, either Pressburg or in Poland, probably Pressburg. He says most of the people in his country, nohagim lehakel laset hamitzvah b'Shabbat. They carry an umbrella on Shabbat. Ve'atam, and the reason, mishum she'en ze ela binyan l'sha'ah. It's only a very temporary building. And he says, the Afsha Yerushalmi, even though the Gemara Yerushalmi, there's two Gemaras, there's two Talmuds, Talmud Bavli and Talmud Yerushalmi. The Talmud Yerushalmi holds that a binyan l'sha'ah is still a binyan. Very strict. Even if it's a temporary building, it's called a building, which is forbidden. Talmud Shelanu, our Gemara Bavli, says, disagrees. Babli wins the Yerushalmi. We take halakha from the Babli, not from the Yerushalmi.
When he says Shah, it's a reference to Arai.
Arai.
It doesn't reference an allocated time segment.
Arai. Temporary means. Okay, and so therefore the Hatam Sofer holds the people in his country did it, and they have a reason to do it because the halakha doesn't follow Yerushalmi, it follows the Bavli. Okay, so it's not, so Binyan Arai, Ohel Arai would be allowed, he says, according to the Bavli. Interesting. Not according to the Rif, but maybe according to the Rambam. Maybe he's adding in other things. If it's raining, people are in Shat Hak, people are Sorech, people are Onis, people are suffering.
Yeah, so I was going to ask that, but it seems like all we're focusing now is whether you build or you don't build, if it's Arai or not Arai. But
it could be he's adding
there
different
should
things.
be an entire segment that says Shat Hak, Tovat HaTzibur, Shelo Yom Magim Lebate Knesiot. I mean, the whole thing should be.
It should be. I didn't look up this Hatam Sofer, but it could be he goes into it. I didn't look up the whole thing. It could be. But he says it's okay. Okay. וכן העריך בספר תהילה לדוד לדחות דברי חתם סופר. The Sefer Tefillah David argues on this Hatam Sofer who allows the umbrella. He says it is asur in his country. Whoever does this is breaching the walls of the rabbis. He says you cannot be lenient and use an umbrella. Yosef Shaul Natanzon. He was a Ukrainian rabbi. He writes le'asor, to make it forbidden, and he disagrees also on the Hatam Sofer. Who agrees with this and forbids umbrellas? The Mahaneh Hayim, the Leshad HaShemen, She'arich le'asik also. Rabbi Yosef Svi Halevi, this is what I asked you yesterday, the Abedin of Tel Aviv Yafo, that's what made me think of the question. So Rabbi Yosef Svi Halevi, who was the rabbi in Tel Aviv, he writes in his Sefer Amiran Ne'ima, L'dahot divrei Hatam Sofer, to say the Hatam Sofer cannot be followed. It has to be forbidden, not allow the umbrella. Ve'ela le'esor nesiyat milah b'Shabbat, he says it's forbidden. The Hida, like I told you before, interesting. I mean, I'm just thinking on my own. The Hida's daughter married Rabbi Pardo's son. Rabbi Pardo was the one who said Asur, Asur, Asur. And so the Hida says, his consuegro, Mehutenet, yeah? Shematza b'shut Givat Pinchas ketivat yad. He found a manuscript of the Givat Pinchas, would it be Pinchas Anav. I don't believe this is ever published. I think the Hida he had a large collection of manuscripts. He was also an Italian rabbi during that time, and the Hida found the manuscripts. Maybe it's published now, but at the time it wasn't. And what did he write? He wrote and agreed with the Michtam of David Pardo. So this Italian rabbi agreed with the other Italian rabbi. He says even on Yom Tov it's asur. Remember I told you some people will say on Yom Tov you can make the ohel arai. If it's already open before Shabbat, בשבת שיש איסור הוצאה מרשות היחיד לרשות הרבים, יש לגזור שלא לנושא הכלל. On Shabbat says Rabbi Pinchas Anav, he says on Shabbat you can't carry. If there's no eruv, you can't carry. So if it was open before Shabbat, it's no longer a question of ohel, it's a question of carrying of hotza'ah. And so he would say on Shabbat you can't carry the umbrella. Abal b'yom tov mutar. He says on Yom Tov, you're allowed to carry a pre-opened umbrella. Interesting halakha from.
So, but he takes it to the realm of tiltul versus.
Yeah. Not tiltul. Tiltul is a mukseh word. Hotza'ah.
Yeah. Versus the realm of oil.
He would hold, since the oil is created before Yom Tov.
He doesn't see a problem at all. That's why he goes through the whole thing. He says, it was before, I'm not even going to touch it.
Interesting, right? On Yom Tov, he says it's allowed. It was open. It's a very interesting chidush, but we're not going to follow it. Well, according to his words, if it's Shabbat and there's an eruv around the town, then you should also be allowed to use a pre-opened umbrella on Shabbat. Okay. About Hagaon Rabbi Mordechai Karmi b'Sefer Ma'amar Mordechai writes, "L'halok al divrei Givat Pinchas bazeh." He says, no, we're not taking this leniency. He says you cannot use an umbrella open, pre-open, Shabbat, Yom Tov, you can't use it. וכן פסק להחמיר הגאון רבי יוסף חיים בספר בן איש חי. בן איש חי says also not allowed. וכן כתב המשנה ברורה, which is the Havetz Chaim, says not allowed. והביא שכן דעת חיי האדם, which is I believe a German rabbi, also says not allowed. Also the Petach David, and also the oil of Abraham, Hazon Ish, Kriyat Hana David, Shevet HaLevi, and V'yesh makom le'arich od bazeh, says the Chacham Ovadia. If that's not enough, I have a lot more I can give you, he says. V'en kam mikamol le'arich. I'm going to stop and write it right in here. V'od hazon le'moed. To be continued, but he says at the end, B'sichum, summary. Asur leftoch mitriya. You cannot carry an umbrella. Let's open an umbrella. You can't even carry it. To protect it from the rain. Even if it's pre-open. For sure, if there's no eruv in the place, you're really up a creek. Interesting with the rain allegory. The people who are careful, they're the people who are warning others and careful themselves. The peace should flow like a river. So Chacham Ovadia is always poetic with his words. No umbrellas in Shabbat. No umbrellas, whether it's pre-open or not. So they're asking the rabbi downstairs.
Very interesting halakha, because we keep on learning how much we are making an effort, Chachamim making an effort to be me'akel on the tzibur.
Yeah.
Especially when they're misdarezin lekayem mitzvot. And there you go, and you say, no, soak in rain, or the option, don't show up.
So wait, there's a couple of problems though. Hotza'ah would be a real problem. Hotza'ah is another, if carrying, not every place has an eruv.
Okay, so they could say that it's allowed.
We can wear these.
So,
This is not umbrella.
Yeah.
So, but there are two topics here.
You have to be soaking wet on Shabbat.
Right?
No,
No.
there are two topics. There is the boneh and the hotza'ah. They could at least have agreed that where there is a roof, there's no problem with the boneh because tzorech tzibur, whatever. But nevertheless, the halakha is very clear. No.
But I asked the rabbi downstairs, I was talking about it. I think there could be an invention that who am I? The Shabbat umbrella. We have now a Shabbat light. We have everything. Shabbat, there's a Shabbat umbrella.
It's not temporary. It's just.
So it would have to be. So my first question is, what if we make holes in the umbrellas? Now this is going to come into a whole question of oil. How do you destroy an oil? I don't know, and I'm being perfectly honest. Why? Because most of the laws of oil is by tum'ah v'tahara, and it's severely complicated stuff. It's crazy complicated. Oil, right? Zot Torah, Adam ki yamut be'ohel. Right? Ohel is about tum'ah and tahara, which is so complicated. I wonder if there's a way that we can break an ohel and say my umbrella is no longer an ohel. I don't know the shiur.
Take an umbrella, have it halfway round and halfway.
So telling the rabbi, maybe we could do like levut, sukkah, when they have levut. They put the straps. Maybe they could be. I don't know. I'm being completely ignorant. I don't know how to break an ohel. I have to research how to break an ohel on Shabbat. Or maybe we can go to the material. Just like when we said the halakha shulchan aruch, if you want to wear a hat on Shabbat, if it's bendil, so maybe there could be a special umbrella. It's not going to be a very effective umbrella. That's the problem. No one's going to want to use it if it doesn't protect you from the rain. But I wonder if the poskim can create a Shabbat umbrella. But it's probably not going to happen unless they live in a very rainy area. In Israel, I don't know if there's... I don't know. This could be total nonsense I'm saying right now. I'm being perfectly honest. I want to know. I don't know this. I have to go to the laws of Tumah v'Tahara. How do you break an ohel? How do you render something no longer an ohel? I don't know the shiur. I don't know. All right, yalla. No umbrellas on Shabbat or Yom Tov. But if someone asked you and said, I used an umbrella today, Yuvi, and so you tell the person, ooh, so now, hold on. Ready, Moshe? Yeah, someone comes to Yuvi and says, hey, it's on Sukkot. I used an umbrella today. Am I okay? So you tell the person, hey, let me make you feel better. First of all, don't do it again. Don't do it again. But it's Yom Tov. Do you know some poskim hold on Yom Tov an umbrella is allowed? Yeah. Number two, it's the ohel arai. Even for the poskim who hold it's not allowed Yom Tov, But this is Ohlarai. Even for them on Shabbat, it would be allowed. And that's 2. Number 3, there's an Eruv in the town. So don't worry about Chutzah. You start making the person feel good.
I only have one answer.
Don't do it.
Is I don't know if you're going, but if you go, I'll see you there. Don't worry.
Yalla.